Welcome to Cover Design Studio. In this video, we walk you through designing your CreateSpace cover in Photoshop. You'll also learn how to prepare the files for submission to CreateSpace, and at the end of the video, we'll design a Kindle version of the cover. To design your cover, you'll need three things: Photoshop, your design file, and your manuscript's copyright page. Let's get started. First, you'll need to locate your design file. Look for the file that says front at the end of it in the title that's also a .tiff. And if you get a pop-up box when you open it that asks you to update the layers, go ahead and click Update. If you get asked to flatten or merge or don't merge, click Don't Flatten and Don't Merge. For now, we're going to do a File Save As and change the name to the name of the book. This book we're going to call the Star Namer for the example, the Star Namer, and I'm going to leave the word front at the back of it. We're going to save that as a TIFF, and LZW works. To customize the cover, you'll need your Tools panel open, shown here. You'll also need your layers visible, as well as your characters. If you don't see one of those, you can just go up to Windows and select them: Characters, Layers, and Tools. And you'll also want to be able to see this ruler here. If you don't, you can go to View and just make sure Rulers is checked and it should show up. Okay, now so for some of you, you might see a center line going down the middle, and that's just a guide. If you don't have one, you can create it. You don't really need it. It's just a guide to show that things are centered on the 3. And that's important because this cover is designed to be a 6x9 cover, though it can be changed to fit any size. But what you can see is that it's actually a little bit bigger. So it goes past 6 inches on the right, and it goes past 9 inches on the bottom. And that's because these edges are going to be trimmed off once they're printed, and this is a paper version. It'll be trimmed down to be a 6x9, at least in this example. Depending on the size of your cover, say if you have an 8x10 or a 7x10, for example, this cover is going to be stretched and pulled just a little bit to accommodate it. But they're all designed so that it won't become distorted depending on your size. You can see over here on the right that we have a variety of different text elements, all in different layers, and they correspond to the text that's on the page. You just simply highlight each one to modify it on the page. The first thing we'll do, though, is find the layer that says Copyright. It's right here. And then we want to locate Copyright on the cover. And in this case, it's down here in the corner. Sometimes it can be a little hard to find, but it's a copyright notice, and you'll want to select Text, the capital T. And let me zoom in so that we can get a better look at it. So it says Copyright Notice, copy and paste into your book's copyright page, quote, original and modified cover art by artist name and coverdesignstudio.com, end quote. So just highlight the part inside the quotations and go right-click, copy. You can also go to Edit Copy. And then open up your manuscript to the copyright page, and we're going to paste that in. And I like to make sure that what I've just pasted in is the same point size and typeface as the rest of the text on the page. And once you've done that, you can save and close, and you've finished your copyright obligation for this particular cover. So to ensure that we don't have to see that copyright, we'll go over and click this I, and it makes it disappear, and that way it won't show up on your final product. Okay, so now we can start entering text. And let's select the book title first. And make sure you have the text tool selected. But you can see here we have 2 different sizes of type, large and small. So we always recommend changing things one line at a time. My book's called the Star Namer, so that first word I can leave. And I can just select each line to change the words. Now if I didn't need the at the top, I would just delete it. The Star Namer, and then we click it again to render it. Okay, let's go up to the top and just work our way down. So we'll change declarative statement to say the definitive guide. Okay, next one. Looks like it's the author name. My name is Stacy Vanderpool. I'll type that in. The next one's the copyright, which we already took care of. The next one refers to this up here. This is where you can put a quote or a blurb or a positive endorsement. I don't have that for this book, so I'm just going to type in something here that's more of a book description. Everything you need to know about naming your own stars, including a list of a list of resources. Okay. All right, the next one is information about the author. I'm going to write night sky gazer and star naming expert. You get the idea. The next line down, this is where you put a subtitle, or if you don't have a subtitle, or if it's too long to fit on your particular design, you can write more description or something like of a tagline like this is, the universe is your oyster. And then we always click that layer again to render it. Now the last one we have here is the Starburst. And most of our designs don't have these, but in case yours does, we'll show you how to change it. This is for announcing a book award that you've won or been nominated for, since this book hasn't had that. And yours most likely won't either if it's never been published. You can just write something else. So we'll put the most complete resource on the topic. Okay. All right, so that's looking pretty good. But let's say that something in here didn't work for you. For example, let's say you had a longer name. If my name were Jonathan Lee Vanderpool, you can see that it's pushing out to the margins and starting to take up more room on the page than it should. So we'll click that layer to render it and then go up to the letter spacing on characters. You can see the letters have been spaced out to 100 in this particular line. If we want the spacing to be tighter, just pick a lower number. So we pick 0 and you can see that the letters tighten up and fit better on the page. And you can use this same strategy for the title as well. The title is spaced at 0. To tighten it up, we'll have to pick a negative number. And you can see that that moves it tighter. I'm just going to go edit, undo. Okay, so then you'll obviously want to check for your spelling and punctuation errors and make sure everything is just as you like it. If you want to move something around on the page, you click the move tool and then select the layer you want to move, and you can move it really wherever you want. The covers are all fully customizable, but I'll go edit, undo again. The other thing that you may want to change in the title is some of the spacing between letters. It's called kerning, and it refers to the spaces between each individual letter, whereas sometimes some of them look like they're more spaced out than others. So what you can do is highlight the ones that appear to have more space between them and go back up to the letter spacing and just choose a lower number. And you can see that that tightened up the word a little bit. So depending on your typeface and your letter combination, you'll have more or less kerning to do, and really it's just the larger words in the title that need to be kerned, and you can adjust those as necessary. So when you're completely satisfied, you're going to go to File, Save, and then what we need to do is embed all these fonts. So we're going to go to File, Save As, to create a new file that's embedded. And we'll just type embed or embedded at the end of this. Keep it as a TIFF. And LZW compression. And now we actually need to embed the font. So we can see we have this new embedded file. So we'll go to Layer, Flatten Image. Some may say Flatten Layers, depending on your version of Photoshop. Click OK. And now you can see in the layers, it's all been embedded into one single image. So we've done everything we need to do with this file so far. So let's just go File, Save, and then we'll reduce it right here because we're going to need it later. So now we need to open up the back and spine and customize both of those. So go File, Open, locate the one again that says back at the end of it, and it's a TIFF file. Sometimes it'll say .tiff. And then we also want to open up the spine. The same way, it'll say spine at the end and it's a TIFF file. And if you get this box that asks you to update, always click update. Again, if you get any boxes that ask you to flatten or don't flatten or merge or don't merge, always click don't flatten and don't merge. Okay, so we're going to do File Save As with both of these and rename them. I'm going to keep the end of it there, so it's still going to say spine, but it's going to say the star namer spine as a TIFF file, as a LZW. And I'll do the same thing with the back. File Save As. I'm going to leave the word back, and you can omit everything else and call it the star namer back as a TIFF LZW. Okay, so on the back, we're not going to go over entering all the text again because we've already done that. We will take a look at these two icons here. There's a Facebook and a Twitter icon. If you have a Facebook or a Twitter address that you want to include on your cover, we've created some text layers so that you can do that right here and right here. You can customize these for your own addresses. If you don't want them or you don't want both of them, you can just make them invisible the same way we did the copyright notice. You can also move them around using the Move tool. And you'll notice here that they are linked together. So when you move them, they're going to move at the same time. If you want to unlink them, select one, hit the Shift key, and select the next one, and then right-click, and you can unlink those layers. So you can move those around the page as you like, but be aware of this lower right-hand corner. That's where your barcode is going to go, and that usually needs to be about 2 inches wide and 1.5 inches tall, and that needs to be free of any text. Okay, so once you have your back cover fully customized, go to File, Save As, just like we did on the front, because we need to create an embedded file. So that'll be called Embedded as a TIFF. And then we're going to embed the fonts. So go to Layer, Flatten Image or Flatten Layers. And you can see in our Layers panel, it's been flattened into a single image. So we'll click File, Save. And then we're going to come back to this in a minute, but for now we'll reduce it. Clicking this here. So we have our front and our back. And then we need to make the customizations to the spines. And it looks like I accidentally created a layer when I clicked on it. If you do that, just highlight it and right click, and you can click Delete Layer. Or you can leave it, it doesn't really matter. But let's highlight the text and make the changes. So we need to make sure we have the text tool highlighted. And this is the book name, so I'll type in the star namer. And then I need to change the author name. I'll write Stacy Vanderpool. I'll click it to render it. Okay. And then go File, Save. And we're not going to flatten this one, and you'll see why in just a minute. So now that you have all your layers created, it's time to put this together into one full piece that you can submit to CreateSpace. To do that, we'll use a CreateSpace template. They're free and really easy to download. You can find a link to it on our website on the instructions page, or you can go to CreateSpace.com and find it on their website, though it's often a little bit buried. So we'll go ahead and fill out this section, the Configure Your Template area, and we'll say we're doing a 7x10 book, black and white interior with 200 pages, white paper. We'll go ahead and click Build Template, and then click here to download. and then we'll click Save File. And then wherever that file saves to, you'll want to open it up, continue opening the many layers, and we're going to focus on this PNG file right here. That's the one that we're going to need to use to create our template. So what I like to do is just drag that file onto my desktop, but you can use it however you'd like. It just makes it a little easier for me to access it. So then we'll go back to Photoshop and go to File, Open, and I'm going to just look on my desktop, and it should be there. There it is, book cover. It's the PNG file, so I'll go ahead and open that up. And go up to Image Size and just double check that that's 300 resolution. Yeah, it's just slightly over. If it's not, change it to 300 if it says something like 2 or 250. And then click Save. But this one's fine as it is. So this is what we're going to use to create our full template. So we'll go File, Save As, and rename it to the name of our book, the Star Namer. And I like to call this particular file Full Spread. So it's the Star Namer Full Spread. And we're going to change it from a PNG to a TIFF file. And we'll go ahead and click Save and LZW. And then also go up to Image Mode and change it from RGB to CMYK. Okay. Now we're going to open our front cover, the flattened version. And you can do copy and paste, but I like to just click the Move tool and drag it over. And the front cover will go on this side of the template. And what we need to do is cover all of the orange lines and push it right up to those dotted lines there. So I'll go up to Edit, Free Transform, and that'll present some little boxes on the corners and at the midpoints. And using those, I can stretch this out. And again, I want to cover just over the orange line there, and then pull it down to the bottom. And then click Return. And we'll do the same thing. We can reduce that. Do the same thing with the back. Whoops, that's the front. Open the back. And again, you can copy and paste or you can drag it over. And the back goes on this side, and you can see how that wraps around the book. The spine goes in the middle. So we'll hide the orange. And then we're going to go Edit, Free Transform, and move it into place. And you can see how it slightly changes the look of the cover when you change it depending on the dimensions of the book. Okay, and we can reduce that again. And the last thing we need to do is the spine. So we'll start by bringing over, actually we're going to bring over the text. So highlight the text layer. And if your text happens to be white on your particular design, you're going to want to change it to be black. And then you can change it back to white before you finish it. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to see it. And the reason this is important, you can change it right here. You go to this color mode, and you just change it to white by clicking on a white spot, or change it to black, I mean, by clicking on the black, and then you'll have to change it back later. But you need to be able to see this, and if it's white, it's going to blend into the background. But the letters need to be well inside these orange lines. And so depending on the size of your spine, if it's particularly wide, you may want to make these letters larger, or if it's smaller, make it smaller. I believe CreateSpace has a minimum of 130 pages. Anything below that, I don't think they allow you to put a spine. So we'll go ahead and center this up. I like to zoom way in to do that and select the Move tool. So it's kind of centered between the two orange bars. And here now it looks like it's scooted a little further down than I want. So I'm going to move it up, and then I'm going to have to recenter it between the orange. So I can do that more easily by zooming in. Okay, Okay, now we need the background layer of the spine. We'll pull that over, line it up at the top, and you can see that it's not long enough, nor is it wide enough, because there's a little skinny line that you can see here. So we'll go to Edit Free Transform and widen it out. And I actually like to make it plenty wide on both sides, and you'll see how we handle that. And then stretch it all the way down and click Return. And then find that layer and just pull it down so that it just sits right above the background layer. And that way you won't have any seams. Okay, that looks good. We have a complete cover design. So when you're satisfied with the layout, go ahead and File, Save. And then we're going to flatten these again. So let's go File, Save As. And change this to a flattened or embedded, whichever layer, as a TIFF. Excuse me, not a layer, a file. LZW. And then let's actually flatten it. So go to Flatten Image or Flatten Layers. And you can see we just have one layer now. And then all we have to do is save this as a PDF so you can submit it to CreateSpace. Make sure that's the flatten layer and go to File, Save As. And we're going to choose PDF. And if you're given the choice, change this to say CMYK. And it's okay, this little caution box that pops up, the line down here says it can be saved as a copy, and that's fine. You can click Save. Older versions of Photoshop will give you an option to click JPEG 12 maximum. Click OK here. If you have this choice, choose PDFX-1A, and modified is OK too. And if you want to view the PDF after saving it, click View and click Save PDF. And there you can see your PDF version. So you can close that. This is the file that you will submit to CreateSpace for your book cover file. For those of you interested in creating a Kindle cover, the remainder of the video will show you how. So you can close down the file that you have here and save any changes. And open up your front cover, the flattened version, and you're going to go File, Save As, and you're going to change Embedded to say Kindle. And we're going to save that also as a TIFF and LZW. Then you want to go Image Mode, and you want to change that to RGB. And then you want to go to Image Size and change that to 200 and click OK. And if you're satisfied with it as is, you can leave it. Though if you want to be super nitpicky, you can actually shave off these areas we spoke of earlier that would be cut off by CreateSpace, that bit that goes a bit beyond 6 and a bit beyond 9. And you'll do that by cropping. Again, you don't have to do this, but for those of you that want to, you're going to shave just a little bit off, line that up with 6. And a little bit off of the 9. So we've cut a little bit off the top, the bottom, and the edge. And then hit Return, and you can see that it's a perfect 6 by 9. Go File, Save. And then File, Save As, and this time we'll just save it as a JPEG. Click Save. And you want the highest resolution possible. Keep that RGB down there if you have the option. So we want 12 maximum. And now you have a JPEG file that you can submit to Kindle for your book cover.